it seems to me that she's really saying that she wants to date the doctor's or the attorney's wallet.
One of the biggest issues that men at our level have with relationships is women don't recognize or don't understand what it is to be us.
Right.
What's going on? What's going on? What is going on, man? Nieces and nephews, kinfolks and cousins, and everybody else, how y'all doing? I have none other than the lead attorney in the house here in Miami, and go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody, the three people that don't know you.
Right, yes, guys. I am the lead attorney, a 20-year attorney in Atlanta, Georgia. And I just want to take a moment to thank the Godfather himself, Kevin Samuels, for inviting me down here. Beautiful place down here in Miami. I might have to think about getting a place down here after seeing how my man is living. So really want to thank you for having me down here. It's beautiful.
Cool. And here's the thing. I really wanted to actually talk to more people. I'm on this whole segment talking about business, brains, and bonds. And one of the biggest holes I see in content in general, as we were talking off camera, especially content in Black Americans, we really don't have a focus on business.
Right.
And no shout to the industry. But if you look at Black America, you think, well, the media is driven by athletics, entertainment, music, sports, and that's a man that's under 35. And there's this big hole. That's kind of where this whole high value thing came into play, because the very men that women want to become and the women that men say the men that women say they want fit into that category. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself, a little bit of background, and I'm going to adjust this camera. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I am from Atlanta, Georgia. I went to UGA for undergrad and law school. So I'm what they call a double dog. Shout out to the Georgia Dogs. We are the national champions in the SEC. After that, I started practicing in Atlanta. And that was the practice of law is super interesting. Once you graduate from law school, a lot of times people will think that you learned a lot of law in law school, and it's really not the case. You have to learn so much when you get out into the practice, right? And so I spent the next 20 years practicing law primarily in family law. So we're talking about divorces, we're talking about child support, we're talking about alimony defense, we're talking about, child support modifications, custody, things of that nature. So it's been a super interesting ride. I decided to retire last year, and honestly, I had wanted to get out of the practice for a few years before I retired. The law is a very stressful job, and it can be rewarding, but you really have to love it for it to really be worth it. And I had decided usually around year 14 or year 15 that I didn't love it. And I was always just kind of thinking, is this going to be my last year? Is this going to be my last year? It's kind of like these running backs or NFL players where they're saying, oh, can I go one more year, or is this going to be my last one? So I decided last year to kind of go through the retirement process and make that my last year. So I started a YouTube channel basically to give men some tips on what they could do to improve their situation in their, not so much in their marriages, but in the process of divorce. People pay divorce attorneys a lot of money to find out some very simple things. So I said, why not just start a channel where I talk about some of these simple things and give that information out for free. That was valuable, but it didn't get a lot of the following that I thought it should have gotten. And, just going over the growing humps and learning how to be a YouTuber. I was about to quit, in fact. I thought about it 2 or 3 times. But then the man himself, O'Shea Duke Jackson, really gave me a lot of inspiration, helped me out tremendously, gave me some collaborations on his channel that really boosted my subscribers. It boosted my views. and it gave me a lot of momentum. And with that momentum, I was able to see more about how YouTube worked. I was able to get more exposure, and I was able to get my message out, and it started resonating. And then from then on, I just kind of been on this YouTube ride, which is, it's not always smooth, right? And it takes a lot of learning, but I've had a lot of help along the way, primarily from O'Shea Duke Jackson, and you've helped me out tremendously as well, Kevin. So again, I want to thank you for that.
You're welcome. And see, one of the things I think that people misunderstand that at our relative ages, that even what they didn't just see, the poise it takes to move when things are really happening. Everybody has a plan until they get hit.
Yes.
I always say you build the airplane while you fly, and that's a skill set that I developed in the corporate sales room and in the boardroom. She developed it in front of in front of judges and things like that. So the making of content, there's a content portion, there's a knowledge portion, there's a presentation portion. You mentioned that you came to give guys some tips and pointers and things like that, but it really didn't take off until you start talking about relationships. And the relationships, let's just call it the conflicts.
Yes. Yeah, I noticed a lot. You come into YouTube saying, okay, I got a message, and this is what I want to share with the world. And you share that message, and no one cares. No one hears it. No one pays attention to it. But you find out very quickly that there's this thing called human psychology, and it is present on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And there are things that people gravitate towards, like relationships. They gravitate towards money. They gravitate towards conflict, towards messiness, towards strife. And I found out that what you have to do is present your message in a way that kind of it's embedded within things that people already want to consume, right? So a lot of people on YouTube for entertainment purposes. So if I have a message that I think it's important, I better make it entertaining. My very first messages were not entertaining at all. I was trying to be what's that?
Not woman.
Yeah. I was trying to be, the little attorney. According to this and that. They did not want to hear it.
Cornball, goofy.
Yes.
That's what I kind of want to transition into because, you mentioned O'Shea, and I found I came into men's style and fragrance, isn't it? YouTube is a vast ocean.
Yes.
And before I found men's content, even though I was still talking about men's stuff in the barbershop, and I've been involved in this men's stuff since the 90s with the Shahrazad Ali book. We were talking about it on the campus of OU. I didn't know that there was this much of a sector, but still I came out with that very corporate whatever. And one of the things they said is like, hey man, you need to relax and become more relatable, which I am in my day-to-day life. So what I want to do, the segue is, as I'm sure women want to know, what is it like for a successful an attorney to date? Because I often get women saying, when I ask women, the questions I ask them, one of the professions they always focus on is attorneys or physicians. So what is it like to date as an attorney? Kind of go from there and ask me.
Yeah, dating as an attorney, let me take a step back. I live in Atlanta, right? And I'm a black man in Atlanta, and there are a lot of black women who are eligible in Atlanta. So dating in Atlanta is not difficult if you are a black man. You kind of get a geography premium, let's say.
Right.
If I was in North Dakota or something, I would have a much harder time. Having said this, though, a lot of times if a woman will say, "Oh, I want to date a doctor or an attorney," it seems to me that she's really saying that she wants to date the doctor's or the attorney's wallet. Because you really don't want to date an attorney. I was married for 10 years. And that marriage was difficult in part because of my job. I did not know exactly where to draw the line in terms of, having my job and helping all of my clients, and then at the same time trying to pour into a wife. And it was very difficult. And so if you're dating an attorney, you need to know that the attorney is not going to be around all of the time when you want the attorney to be around.
So what I'm hearing is wallet, but also under the bigger umbrella of lifestyle. A lot of women want to date what I think they believe is to be a lifestyle.
Yes.
So it's amazing. I even have a segment up on Instagram right now. I'm like, what are the professions that a man making $350,000 legally would need to make? And they all say a lawyer or attorney. I'm like, do y'all think all attorneys make $350,000? I'm like, no. But when I realized that a lot of women want this lifestyle, and they want you to be babyface.
Yes.
So
exactly right.
Let's take it from this standpoint. What would you, if you were talking to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would you tell him to prioritize in the next 10 years regarding his personal life and how to move with the expectation of becoming an attorney out in the dating world? How about that?
Yeah, that's a big question. And to be honest, I'm going to give you an honest answer. You might say a woman says, well, I want to date an attorney because they have an idea of what dating an attorney will be, an idea of what that lifestyle is. 18-year-olds thinking about going to law school, they also have this delusion of what it is like to be an attorney. And I had no idea when I changed my major to pre-law and back in undergrad that, and I was going to be this attorney. I had no idea what that career looked like, about the hours and the stress. It was not. It was a good career, but it wasn't necessarily fulfilling for me. So if I had to take a step back, I might say, listen, is this profession even for you? Exactly.
See, and for me, as somebody who was in corporate sales, I primarily sold to attorneys for the time. No matter what industry I was in, I sold to attorneys because one of my friends says, "You're our kind of asshole." Because I actually had a firm actually offer to say, put you through law school, but I'm like, no, I don't think so.
I think you would have made an excellent attorney. Excellent.
But so when I was downtown Dallas, Haynes and Boone, Jackson Walker, Kent Hanger, these are some of the big names that were across the buildings out there. And it used to amaze me that when you walked into a big law firm, they got the domination and intimidation starts within.
Yeah, the big rotunda and all that. You're exactly right.
Then you go behind the scenes. And after the people are up here, then you got all the paralegals and the first year, and they're just working their ass off.
Yes.
And then they juxtapose that with then when people start out on their own and they're in a little executive suite and it's like they look like a copier exploded and they're living in this. I'm like, now, how do you? I'm like, this doesn't look sexy.
Exactly. You work so hard, and so it's kind of if I hear a woman say, "I want to date an attorney," it elicits a lot of emotions, but it's like you don't really know what that person had to go through to get to that point that now you want to come in and date them when they've done so much to be successful. And even then, as a woman, a lot of times I think you're going to be unhappy if, let's say, your love language is quality time, because there's going to be a lot of, Thursday nights when I'm in the office, to 9:30 at night, 10 in the morning. There's going to be a lot of nights where, Sunday I'm in my office at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning because I'm preparing for trial on Monday morning. You don't really have a lot of contact a lot of times with your husband. Now, there might be some women who like that. You hear of all these athletes that, when they're playing in the regular season and they're away, they got their away games, everything's good. But the instant that they retire and they're at home, right, here comes the divorce, right? So it just depends. But dating an attorney is not all it's cracked up to be. I'll tell any woman that being an attorney, number one, is not all that it's cracked up to be. And certainly dating, I got out of a relationship, a 2-year relationship last year. And I talked to my ex about a week or so ago, and we're not really on great terms. And what's one of the things that she always used to say that would bug the hell out of me, which I've heard throughout my career, is if we're arguing about something or having a back and forth, and I start making a good point, she'll be like, oh, you're just being a lawyer on me. You're just lawyering me, right? So, dismissing the fact that I'm using logic, right? It's, oh, you're just doing your lawyer tricks. And you just kind of like, all right, you really can't win in that situation.
I'm going to tell you, as a salesperson,
Mm-hmm.
I used to hate when friends or relationships, women I'm dealing with, you're just trying to sell me. You're just trying to close me. I'm like,
that's exactly right.
It's like the worst kind of insult because, anyway, it's so bad. So let's transition it this way. For the people who aren't salespeople or attorneys, I got this term that I didn't come up with, this whole high value. Men who make a certain amount of income. And I think most women envision attorneys as having this great, you're going after work and dinners and socialized. Whether that's true or not is not really the point, but what is it? What are some of the challenges you would say you find dating today as a man who, let's just say for the sake of argument, you're financially doing pretty good?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not big about talking about money on YouTube, but you're doing better than most guys. You have a certain degree of notoriety, name recognition. So that gives you, in 2020 language, clout. How is it dating today versus, let's say, 10 years ago?
Yeah. Dating for me, as an attorney, most attorneys don't have clout. Even, you can have an attorney that's making $5 million a year and you don't even know his name, right? So most attorneys don't have clout like that. This is the first time in my life where I'm just starting to get recognized. I was down at Lenox Mall last week and I got recognized 3 times. Now, being on these dating sites, I'm also starting to get recognized on the dating site.
I think my profiles are fake.
Yes. And this is just happening, though, in the last couple of weeks. So honestly, I was kind of asking you about it because I really don't have any visibility on how to handle that situation.
Well, it's kind of like anything else. I would tell men, you're going to have, you need a line. That's why I say your wolf pack is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're in law school, you can't talk to people who are undergrad about what's going on first year in law. That's a different thing.
Right.
So when you need to be around, like I'm putting together a coalition of men who worldwide who are dealing with these issues because if you're single or you don't have any small children and you have this whole thing called digital nomad.
Yes.
I personally, people thought I was nuts when I didn't want to buy houses and things like this when I was younger. But now you're in a position to where you decide you wanted to go to Spain and just work remotely. You could say lead attorney from whatever, and you know how to do that, Aldo.
Mm-hmm.
But the dating, being able to be a digital nomad means that you can actually go to where you can choose where you want to go because now you're in Atlanta. Well, see, what I think now is we as men, things are kind of tipping in our direction.
Yes.
And we've never seen, I hadn't seen this in my lifetime. So it's like, well, wait a minute. We're used to playing from behind, trying to catch up or trying to hold on to a lead. Now we'll be able to go on the offense. And that's this whole high value man thing. So have you thought about what you want your late 60s, 70s to look like from a relationship standpoint?
Yeah, honestly,
are kids off the table? Yes, no?
I'm 45, so I'm getting this late in the game for me. It's late in the game, and if you're 35, 40, 45,
you got some women out there be like, please say no, please say no, please.
Right? If you're 35, 40, 45, you can certainly afford a kid. It's not going to bankrupt you. And it is nice to have a legacy. But there's there's a lot of cost to having children, and not just necessarily financial costs. I'm intimately aware of the risk of having kids from being a divorce attorney for 20 years. And one of the things that I always tell men who focus on this legacy aspect, which I totally understand, but I tell men that they cannot have kids. Like you can have a child, But in this country, you can't have the child,
No,
right? You can't.
no.
It
You
is.
pay for the kid.
That's exactly right. You have obligations to this child, and if you're married to the mother, you're gonna feel like it's your child. But you can do some like this Thanos snap that you kind of made famous, and you can look up. You can spend 8 years from year 0 to 8 every single day with this child, and the woman can snap her fingers, go to me to file a divorce against you, and then 45 days later, you get to see your son every other weekend, right? And 2 weeks in the summer.
So I have two questions I want to ask because there's this whole Nick Cannon model.
Mm-hmm.
See, I hear a lot of guys who want legacy, but they think that because you have a lot of money, you can afford a lot of kids. You can afford to pay for a lot of kids.
Right.
But I think we both know, at least in the West, that the notion of father knows best, that whole thing is gone. So I'm very pragmatic when it comes to relationships. So if I were to have kids, I would already start calculating the outflows and the loss, because like you said, you don't own that. She has the kid, so I don't think women understand how much of a risk it is for men to have children these days.
They don't.
And especially at this age, I have my daughter. And I would be open to it, but if I didn't have kids, I don't think I would miss it. And I'll only be open to it for another couple 3 years.
Right.
And then after that, and I'm out there.
Yes.
Now I'm out there, but I want to be out there. Do you, in your 60s, do you want to have one person, or do you want to have more than one person?
Yeah, and this is a big thing in the manosphere and the red pill community about spinning plates and this and that, and a lot of guys get a lot of value out of that. I don't get a lot of value out of that. I would love to have one long-term monogamous relationship. For all the guys who need to spin plates and have their variety, more power to them. I can't imagine it.
I think it's. I try to think about, because when I was on the yard, I'm on the yard. I'm a Kappa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I said that no, you don't see many bachelors who are millionaires and billionaires. And I've started talking about this term executive wife, almost like a wife is a job description.
Mm.
So, for the sake of argument, let's leave Western marriage and the court system and everything else. Have you wrote out the resume you would want from your primary? I call it an executive wife.
Mm-hmm.
Have you written out a job description? And this is what your job description is, and this is what you do, and here's what you get paid, here's how much you're gonna make off of you.
Right. No, I haven't. It's more of an internal, and I'm really, I'm kind of bummed about my last relationship ending because it was such a beneficial relationship. But we broke up over the last summer, right? So it's been a while, and I've dated, and I'm sure she's dated, and things like 2 years. I will say this though. No. There's a lot of complicating factors towards it. Super special person. Yeah. It just didn't work out. But it's one of those things where you can feel it. You're just like, okay, this, at least when it started, right? At least when it started, it was like, oh my goodness, I was getting so much value out of that relationship. And if it had lasted, let's say, another year, we probably would be married, right? But it didn't make it to that point. I haven't written out, let's say, a resume, but I understand, like in my head, what I would want. But again, getting married and this, to a 20-year divorce attorney, marriage means something different to me than it does to a lot of people. And you had asked, how is it to date an attorney? And a lot of women will say, hold up, now you are a divorce attorney. Are you jaded? Are you against marriage because of all of the bullshit that you have seen in these family courts, right? And I'm not jaded, but I understand how to protect myself to the extent that it's possible. Well, it's always going to be a risk.
To the extent that it is possible.
Right.
To the extent that, ladies, and in particular gentlemen, relationships are risks.
Yes.
To the extent that it is possible. I've gone almost 180 degrees. There was at one point I was like, oh no. But then hearing so many of my clients and men who seemingly have everything on their ball, I said the reason I even started talking this men's content is so many guys are wanting relationships. And I think one of the biggest issues that men at our level have with relationships is women don't recognize or don't understand what it is to be us.
Right.
See, we're meant to understand them, and now my content and more content like that is finally forcing women to say, wait a minute, I'm expecting all of this. And you're starting to see more women at least think about this stuff. So, and that's an unintended, well, not necessarily unintended consequence, but a pleasant surprise to see so many women come back.
Yes.
So I mentioned on my Patreon and I mentioned on YouTube that I'm going to start having these events. The first one we'll be having is going to be in Boston. And I firmly believe this because I've seen it happen in my Facebook group. We've overcomplicated relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be fascinating to talk about. I'm sure as an attorney, you guys went through a part of being in law school where you had to not play devil's advocate, but what is it when you have to take the other position?
Yeah, when you have to argue the other side. You can say devil's advocate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of my favorite things in philosophy. But it gets to be too much.
Yeah.
When you drop people in who understand that they're going to be trade-offs and choices, I've seen more successful relationships, whatever you want to call it, happen. Because like you, I don't want to have a rotation in my 70s. That's just too. I mean, it's not even a matter of money, or it's
just effort and energy, right? And it's like, oh, why do I want to do that? But I think that's so much of where your value comes in. And I totally understand when you're saying, it looks like maybe some of the women are at least acknowledging some of the risks that men are running. But even if they don't, even if women remain ignorant to the risk and the plight of men, the fact that men are understanding more. And I do consultations for people generally for men. Women can call too, but it's mostly men who are going through the divorce process or who are thinking about getting divorced. And so many of them mention you. So many of them, I mean, I don't want to say that you're the cause of their divorce, but you show them that they are worth something.
Right.
You show them that they have value. The last 5 years of their marriage has been miserable. They haven't had sex in the last 7 years. The woman is cussing the husband out in front of the kids for the last 3 years. And these men start listening to your content and realize that they don't have to live like that, that they are valuable as men, right? And so your channel, your content has so much value regardless of whatever the women themselves come to learn or acknowledge about our plight.
Well, I think that people are starting to understand that it has a lot of value. I'm at a point now where I think that women over 30 need to be making a business plan. They need to be approaching and saying, you know what, I want to be married to, even if what I find is women want to be with a man that's respected by others. And to that end, I think it's good for us as guys to know what we need from a woman. And then I've also got to a point to where I'm like, if a woman wants to shoot her shot, here's how to do it. If a woman's out there saying she wants to shoot her shot at the lead attorney, have you thought about what that needs to look like? Do they need to just drop their figurative hanky out there? Or?
Listen, I'm starting to get some DMs now. My Instagram is paltry. It's not popping at all. But there are a few women who will try to find it. I get emails, and again, on these dating sites. I tell you, the biggest thing, if you see me on a dating site, Act like you don't recognize me. That's gonna please. You know, say, "Oh, lead, I love you, Jenna," because that's gonna kill it. I'm so new to this. I don't, and you know, most attorneys we're used to doing our things in private, just one on one. We'll go to court with you. We'll fight for you. You know, we'll talk to the jury in front, and we'll argue in front of the jury on your behalf. But it's more of a one on one type of thing. Getting on the internet, being an attorney is more of like an old school type of industry.
Attorneys. One thing I know about selling to attorneys, they're very slow to make change.
Yes.
Attorneys, we buy our same office supplies from so and so company, and that's the way it is. But attorneys are very competitive.
Yes.
And they're very, what I want to call incestuous, meaning if one firm see another firm do it, they all want to do it.
That's
they all buy
exactly
from Boise
right.
offices, all buy from Office Max. So I cut my teeth on learning how to. my boss used to say, "You cut your teeth on learning how to hunt the biggest game." Because if you can, what I also found is once you start having these kind of clients, they were loyal.
Yes.
They were loyal, and you ain't gonna just offer a law firm. We can say you 10%, man, whatever.
Exactly.
I'll pay 40% just to keep my guy because I don't want to have to worry about it.
That's exactly right.
So how does that translate into your personal relationship life? Is it a direct map over?
Yeah, and I think a lot of men, most men actually, most of us practice. We have this kind of consumption, or we try to save on energy, right? This conservation of energy. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, well, you can save 10% if you just switch over here. It's like, I would rather lose the 10% than have to fight the inertia and spend all this energy trying to research which is the best deal, and that I'll just leave everything the same. And a lot of men take that approach with dating and relationships and marriages. I take that approach too. It's very easy for me to get on these dating apps and just kind of swipe away. It's easy, and I don't have to, talk to some woman in the grocery store, find out she got 2 or 3 kids or nothing like. Talking to people one-on-one is time consuming. What I've seen through this YouTube is that you can talk to 1,000 people at the same time. Mm-hmm. You can talk to 15,000 people at the same time, right? And see, dating apps allow you to talk to a wider number of people.
You remember the party's first Friday?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, there's a concept, I don't want to explain it, but it used to just get everybody in the same place at the same time. I'm going to try what I want to do is get business, brains, and bonds in the same room. What I learned on Facebook is invaluable because it's not as though professional men and women, like-minded men and women, don't want the same things. We just don't know how to find it.
Yes.
And apps and things like this. So what I realized is, one, Atlanta, like you went to UGA. Would you say you have your wolf pack, your 3 to 5 guys?
Yes.
All right. I think the wolf pack is so critical because, we didn't have time to do it now, but you, me, a couple of other dudes on the town, women are going to flock our direction just because we big.
Absolutely.
Like, what team y'all play for? Like, y'all, we are. But I think we have overcomplicated to the point to where if we just get back to the basics, men working with men, grinding, hustling, building, and looking like you're living life, women will naturally follow these things. I mean,
absolutely. And that's why I'm so glad that you were starting this initiative to get business men together, right? And not necessarily businessmen in the corporate sense, but men who have a business mentality. Because when we come together and share knowledge, we can all be so much stronger. The manosphere itself is so important. Sometimes people will criticize me for being a part of the manosphere. Now, you can argue whether I'm a part or not, right? Because some people say I am, some people say I'm not. But I do make content that is for the empowerment of men.
Men-centric I call it MCU, the men-centric universe.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think about how things were when I started dating when I was 18 and 20 years old, and all of the lessons that are taken for granted now in the manosphere, all the lessons that are just, oh, this is common sense. It wasn't common sense 25 years ago.
Man, please.
Right?
And the thing is, guys today, y'all should have you got the cheat code.
Yes, that's exactly what the manosphere is.
So we're going to expect y'all to do exceptionally well. So when we retire and Socrates' ages, y'all ain't trying to put us out the pasture.
That is
That's the thing.
exactly
I
right.
mean it clearly. I don't want to be the face of this. I want everyone. I want to see us get all this together. Build media, build an economy. We've seen other groups make themselves powerful in a short period of time.
Yes.
And you do it through economics. So this is why one of the things that I refuse to do is people try to make me be this top 10% elitist. And I think anybody who's watching my content will know that I'm a fervent defender of average men. Because
Yes.
I come from blue collar factory people. And we should have business at all levels. And the thing is,
Absolutely.
we should be so busy as men working, just like and the women will come follow, and then we'll pair off. So, do you think you're going to stay in Atlanta for the remainder, or you think you may relocate?
That's a great question. You know, you got me down here in Miami, man. It's looking so good, you know. And so I can't afford this situation, but you know, I could do a little something. And I know a lot of people are YouTubers, but a lot of people in general are just moving to Florida and Texas because of the tax breaks. And you know, because I'm retired and doing this YouTube thing now, like you mentioned, YouTube can be kind of like a digital nomad type of thing. But you know, I also have this inertia of just staying where I am, so trying to fight that. But I mean, this situation right here it had me thinking on the Uber. I was like, man, I might need to make some moves.
I'm gonna tell you, I built my business in Oklahoma City, and then in such a way
Mm-hmm.
to where if it worked, it could just be a pop-up shop. Atlanta, I came to Atlanta and said, I'm going to do a year in Atlanta. If I like it, not worst thing I could always go back home.
Right.
Then COVID hit. I thought about. I'm much more of a New York City guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shout out to all you guys who love the heat. I hate the heat. But it's funny. Like LA and Miami are so good for business for what we do, but the ability to be where it is and happening. Also, what I noticed is it opens men's minds to the possibility. Like, I wish I was bilingual.
Mm-hmm.
If I was bilingual, y'all would have to fight to keep me here.
Right.
Because I'm doing the Rosetta Stone behind on it. But
It's
yeah, why
tough.
not do a month? Because all you really need, honestly, after a good couple of nights sleep to get over the jet lag, is a stable internet connection.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, have you been to Europe?
I've been to Europe a couple times, just you know, on these little tours where they just rush you from city to city. So nothing really meaningful, let's say.
So you're bilingual. Have you been to Spain?
I've been to Spain, yeah.
So you wouldn't even have to have that much of a learning curve, man. I would say here's the good. What I think would be great is to see men, black men in particular, out in the world.
Mm.
And you know, I'm a two-piece. I'm a two-piece of the biscuit dude.
Mm-hmm.
Fried chicken. You know, never get too big for fried chicken, catfish.
Yes.
But getting out and doing these things and coming back, because what I do notice is whether people want to call it the manosphere or whatever, I'm just saying men's content.
That's the perfect way to say it.
So, you know, if you can find it in the old school Playboy magazine, GQ, or Esquire, it should be able to be found. That's what I want to be found on my platform. That's everything. That's everything from private jets to Tylenol.
Yes. Yeah.
And we're at the very beginning of content that's bridging the gaps between men across the board, and the fact that we're black men doing it You know, even
Absolutely.
better. So I would tell you folks, I'm excited about what's coming up. I'm excited about what's coming up, and I'm really happy that we're pushing the envelope to improve the overall image of men and redefine what masculinity, excellence, and all this other stuff looks like. This is why, coming from the image side, it's so important that we start with that piece and then control the message and then become beneficial to other people and other ourselves. Don't just hoard it all ourselves to get it kind of out there. So, um,
I totally agree. And I think, bringing people together from diverse backgrounds, everybody comes in at an angle and everyone has something to contribute. You take you, an expert image consultant, you take me, and an attorney, maybe there's a CPA, maybe there's an MBA, all of these different people. And not even to be elitist, maybe you have people from the trades that are making a ton of money as well, right?
oh, yes, sure.
Absolutely. Everybody comes in and contributes. And it can be so much more powerful than, just talking about relationships with women. Because again, if your money is right and your business mind is right, the women are going to come regardless.
And I think that's, you know, it it may look more appealing to the camera to be in suits and things like that. But the blue collar and the trades have always, I mean, ain't nobody in no suit built under these buildings.
Correct.
So
Correct.
we just use them. And now what we're doing is men are starting to see what their interests being represented, and we can choose. And this is different. This
Yes.
is different. So I think it's going to be important. I know for me, it's important that how we are represented and what we do with this, because someone would have told me this would have been even a possibility 20 years ago. I said, "You crazy."
Exactly.
But we find ourselves here. So I'm glad you were able to come down. I don't want to belabor this too long, guys. We are just getting started. You guys have no idea. Watch this space. Watch this space, ladies. If you want to shoot your shot at the lead attorney, or if you want to join my page, we're gonna have ways to connect. Building a network is something I'm extremely excited about. Um, and I think that's where the real value is, being able to have your base. You can mobilize that in many different ways. And when you have a base that you mobilize, that you have credibility with, a lot more people don't start to see you as less than or an enemy. They start to see you as an opportunity.
Correct.
What do you have to say to everybody before we kind of wrap up?
Listen, I think that your idea about starting this, I think it's excellent. You are the person that can do it. You are the godfather at the top. None of us, all of us are too small to really get it all galvanized. So I think that's excellent. I'm appreciative to be a part of it. But more than that, I really do just want to thank you for inviting me down here. It's an excellent place, so beautiful. Miami, you are living it up down here, Kevin. And to have the opportunity to talk to you, it's just amazing. You told me some things off camera about how this YouTube thing works and other things that really just kind of blow my mind. So I really appreciate you supporting me like this. There's no reason why you have to do it at all. You are just supporting another brother. So I really just want to thank you for that.
No problem. And I want to say that if you've been watching me for a long time, you saw me from the beginning. I leave all my, when it was iPhone 5S, still trying to figure this all out. We want to continue to push the message, improve the message, because I do realize that when I see a young guy and he's like, I love what you're doing, y'all like to see us do better. I keep him, you never hear me talk a lot about money or this and that. I am about the work. I'm about the work, and then showing that you can choose what you want to in life. So, raising our standard, raising our idea of what's possible, not just what's probable, and then getting out there and doing the work and then making the collaborations and sharing it. That's why I say this whole thing about high value men. So little of it has to do with money, and so much of it has to do with visibility, network, usefulness to others and the group. Men like that are valuable no matter where they are, no matter what race they are, no matter what season. And like I said, this platform, I want to get insanely rich by helping people get what they want, and I'll get what I want along the way. So we starting. And if you want to help along the way, there'll be things happening this year and going forward. We need all hands on deck.
Yes.
All hands on deck for men, all women. If you want to support us, we're going to need you too. Because y'all are 73 cents out of every dollar. Bring some of them dollars this way. I appreciate it, man. We're out of here, y'all.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Kevin.